Hi everyone, this is Andrew Carvajal from Carvajal Law, and on this clip of the Alpin Academy, we're going to be talking about the low-wage LMIA cap, a little bit about how the cap works, what are some of the exemptions, and the kind of answers that you'll need to input into the LMIA application when trying to determine whether an LMIA application can proceed or not based on the cap on low-wage temporary foreign workers. Okay, so basically, the cap has existed for quite a while. The percentage of the cap actually went down last year after it had been increased for a little while. And basically, the most important point to start is that this applies to low-wage positions. So once you've determined whether what is going to be paid to the foreign worker is below the high wage threshold or not for each province and territory, that's when you'll know whether you have to worry about this or not. Okay, so if you're paying more than the high wage threshold, then it's a high wage position and you don't have to worry about it. But if you're paying less, it's a low wage position. And again, this has nothing to do with the median wage for the position in the location of employment. This has to do with those numbers that determine whether a position is high wage or low wage, and we've talked about that in other videos. Okay, so basically right now there's a refusal to process any application when the proportion of low wage positions is above the 10% of the workforce at that given location. Now there's a lot of things to unpack here, and we'll do them as we go through the questions of the LMIA portal. But basically low wage positions that matter here are only the ones that are under the temporary foreign worker program, so low wage LMIAs. If there's a bunch of people who are working in low wage positions but are Canadians, or they're under LMIA exempt work permits, those don't are not factored here. There's some exemptions to the cap, so some positions are not affected by the cap at all. Primary agriculture, caregiving positions, some caregiving positions, highly mobile, truly temporary positions, and there's like a rule of 120 calendar days or less. Just read that closely. You'll find that in the guidelines for low-wage LMIAs. And also seasonal positions that don't go beyond 270 calendar days. And there's some rules there to determine what makes it seasonal, and that this exemption can only be applied once per year in which the work is expected to begin per work location. There's also the exemption for positions in support of permanent residence only. This refers to that dual LMIA application or LMIA supporting PR, and where you're only doing the application for the employee to get points towards express entry, then you're not subject to the cap. My guess is that this is going to disappear very soon. These videos are being recorded in March of 2025. It's been announced that in spring of 2025, there will not be points for arranged employment or express entry anymore. So I'm guessing that once that happens, these LMI supporting PR won't exist, and this exemption won't exist either. There's also some variations to the cap. So there's still a cap, but it's 20%, and it's for positions that fall under certain codes of the North American Industry Classification System. So construction, food manufacturing, hospitals, and nursing and residential care facilities, and also some specific in-home caregiver positions. So you can find the list there. Okay, so I need to figure out whether the employer can do an LMIA or not. I already know whether it's 10% or 20%. If there's a cap, because obviously there's exemptions to the cap, but then there's a 20% if it's any of these positions, or just the general rule 10%. And I need to fill out the form. So how do I do that? You're going to have to pick a 1 month period prior to the submission of the application. So if I'm submitting that on the 24th of July, it's going to be 1 month until the day before. I normally try to do it that it basically stops the day before or the day that I'm submitting the application. Let's go through the questions. So the first question is, how many full-time employees, that includes Canadians, permanent residents, foreign workers, that includes pretty much everyone, how many of them are there at the work location, or where they're at the work location? during that month period that we specified. So full-time is those who are working 30 hours or more. So let's say of all the people who are working at that work location, there's 128 for that employer that are working 30 hours or more, and each of them are going to be counted as one. Now, how many are there part-time? So same location, anyone, Canadian, foreign worker, whatever it is, at that same location, but working less than 30 hours per week, there's 59. These are going to be counted by half. So if there's 60, they're only going to count as 30. And then here it's going to be like 29.5, I guess. Next question, the total number, and here's where we get very technical. Temporary foreign workers in low-wage positions, including those who have received a provincial nomination or let's say a confirmation under the Atlantic Immigration Program or the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot or the new rural program. So any who are in a low-wage temporary foreign worker position, including those who have been nominated. Now, what's very important here is that temporary foreign workers in low-wage positions mean those that are in a low-wage, in an LMIA position and are in a low-wage position. So if I have a number of foreign workers, so people who are not Canadian, but they have a post-graduation work permit or a spousal open work permit, or they're under the International Mobility Program under a closed work permit, but they're not under the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, I don't have to worry about those. It's only those who have an LMIA and they're in a low-wage position. So they're paid less than the median, the threshold for the province or the territory, okay? Those are the ones that I have to include. In this case, we didn't have any, but if there were two people in a low-wage LMIA, I have to include them there. Then the total number of low-wage positions offered in this LMI applications to temporary foreign workers, including those who have received a nomination from a province or anything like that, who are already employed at the work location for the purpose of obtaining a work permit extension. So basically, if you have someone who's already employed at that work location and they are applying for a work permit extension. So basically, the employer is getting a new LMIA so that they can apply for a work permit extension. You would have to list them there. But it's only those low-wage positions that are offered in this particular LMIA and for individuals who are already in the place of employment. So if you're bringing someone from abroad, that doesn't count. But if you have someone there either on an LMIA or a post-graduation work permit, they're in a low-wage position, and the employer is applying for an LMI to keep them there, you would have to include them in question D. Then the number of low-wage positions offering this LMIA to new temporary foreign workers, and the total number of low-wage positions hired but who have not started work. So basically, anyone who's part of this LMIA would need to be included there. This was an LMIA for 5 people, so we included them. And if there's other people who have been for whom the employer has obtained a low-wage LMIA, but they haven't started work at the work location, they need to be included there as well. That might not apply to your case, but if there are people who are waiting for a work permit to be approved, or they haven't come to Canada yet and they're based on a low-wage LMIA, they need to be included there, as well as the people applying under this application who are new to the company, so they're not already working at the company. And then, so that's E. Then F is the number of foreign workers from C and D. So basically, you'll have to look at C and D. So those who are in low-wage positions and those who are in low-wage positions and this LMIA is being done for them to extend their work permit. So those who have actually received a provincial nomination, or let's say, for instance, they applied under the Atlantic Immigration Program and they've received their recommendation, then those would be included there. And the reason for this is that basically the system calculates, puts them into the equation, and basically because they're going to become permanent residents in the future, they basically deduct some percentage of them from the number. So, but basically there you only have to worry about those who you've included in C and who you've included in D, who have received a provincial nomination or a federal recommendation for permanent residence. So one of those provincial or federal programs that are regional. Then G is basically just a calculation from the other numbers that you've put in. So it will be done automatically. Calculate the proportion of temporary foreign workers at the work location during the selected period who are in possession of a confirmation but are not yet permanent residents. So it's F divided by C plus D. So that's just a number that's calculated from those others. And then H is the same thing as G times C plus D minus F. Don't worry about those. Those are just calculations based on the other ones. And then based on that, it's going to give you a number. The number for this employer in this work location is 3%. So we know that we can proceed with this LMI application. If it was more than 10%, then it would be a problem. Okay, so that's how the calculation works. I know that it looks difficult. The main things to keep in mind is that for question A is everyone who works there that's full-time. For question B is everyone who's there but is part-time. For C, you only have to worry about those who are under an LMIA and in a low-wage position. Don't worry about other foreign workers who are low-wage. They have to be under an LMIA. For D is anyone who's using this LMIA to extend their work permit and they're in a low-wage position. For E is any of those who are not extending their work permit, but they're coming from somewhere else. They're new employees, or those who have already had an LMIA. There's an LMIA approved for them, but they haven't started working at the work location yet. And the rest are just parts of the formula. Also important, if you have an employer that has less than 10 people at the workplace, then you would assume that they have 10 people. So for question A, you enter 10. So if there's only 3 people, you enter 10. And obviously, they're only going to be allowed to have one foreign worker, because with that one foreign worker, they're going to hit the 10%. If they have more than one, they're going to be over. And again, it depends on whether their cap is 10% or 20%. But that's important, because if you have a workplace that's only 5 people and you're bringing someone, you're already at more than 10%. So that's why they say to assume that they have 10 employees, even if it's less than 10. So you would enter 10 at that question A. Okay, so I hope this is helpful. This is a low wage LMIA cap and the calculation that you need to do. And if you're under 10% and your cap is 10%, you're good to go. If you're in one of those industries or positions that's 20% and you're under 20%, you're good to go. But if you're above the threshold, then you're not going to be able to proceed with the LMI application. They're just simply not going to process it. Okay, so I'll see you at the next LPIN Academy video. Thank you for watching. If you want to continue learning, be sure to explore the full range of resources available to immigration and legal practitioners through the LPIN Academy and LPIN's CPD courses. Visit lpin.ca/academy to access the entire library of practical on-demand content.